So feel it now, compared to how you felt it a second ago. It's pretty hard. So, like, there's definitely not eking out a third one. So 2 passes max, but you can probably just do one at a time.
You're not worried about cracking?
At this point, no. The metal is still at its relative starting thickness. So I'm not too worried there. Where you might, like, if we think, there's 2 things you should probably be worried about, 3. Folds, creating warping that's so dramatic that they fold over each other instead of, like, matching to a new plane or a new border. Cracks, which will develop in all sorts of interesting ways. And tears. So the tears are something I tend to think of with the border. You can start to see a variation from that accumulation of hammer marks. Now, this is maybe past 6, 7. When we get to past 20, 30, those are going to be pretty wild. And if you continue to let those just exist, like the corners on the frog, they will act as a variation in the structure, so much so that they are pulling and pushing in different ways, just as the material continues to stress and move, more like a fluid. So wherever that stress tries to go, it's like, oh, look, okay, I can spill this stress here because it's easy. Boom, crack. Because you had something, I didn't get it bonds up front. So you have this surface, and that's past 1, and then past 30 is this magical wonderland of terrain. And so, like, here is going to be something that might develop into a tear, something like that, and then this could develop into something like that. So I'll probably take this to one of the greatest and probably the most peaceful meditation practices. It's like just making something like a cylinder or something with parallel walls and just watching it slowly grow. Especially so it's so repetitive, kind of gives you a good place to, like, slow down or think about it and just focus on something. That's quite visible, right? You can definitely see the new ripple that we're taking. And sometimes it looks like nothing until you're almost done. But when you get closer and closer and closer, there's always that encouragement of, like, ooh, more definition. So, like, just keep going. It is nice to see. And that's our new slope that we're going to try. It's probably going to lean just a little bit more. But going from, I think I was still using a ball at this point instead of a straight. But so it should develop a little bit quicker. One of the easier ways to keep some slight consistency. So I'm raising it at a square. So I've got these nice faces as like a handle for my hand. So I am kind of doing a quarter, then I'm doing a quarter, then I'm doing a quarter as I continue to do these passes. But when you raise a plate, you can, count to 7, count to 5, count to 10 in strokes, stop, start again. And it's that kind of like rhythm Well, I have an next door neighbor that's a drummer, and sometimes we'll make a fun tune. But through these raising passes, if you can find that rhythm, in whatever form it takes, you're going to have a slightly more consistent result.
That's cool. Yeah, so you've really got it really in there.
Yeah, so like now you have an infinitely variable vise
Yeah,
to like
exactly.
hold something without damaging. It's really helpful. And engravers use pitch, but they don't chase into it. They just use it to hold stuff so they can engrave. So
That's the next thing that I need to start doing is engraving.
yeah, start now. There's only 2 cuts, straight cuts and curved cuts.
Yes.
So start with your straight cuts, do that for a month, try it with different chisels,
Yeah.
and then do your curved cuts, and you're always turning towards you. It's always that. That is one motion. Every single thing is that. It's how you get a predictable result. So as you hold, they have like the handle, like if you took a file handle and you cut it in half, or you took a golf ball and cut it in half,
Yeah.
right? That's your hold.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to push into, and if you have a tighter radius, you spin the bowl faster instead of trying to move with it. So you're always cutting away from you.
Oh yes.
Yeah? Pretty
Yeah.
straightforward, but it does, there's a little bit of finesse involved, just like I guess everything.
Just to make everything.
So with curved liners, you can make them sharp or dull, but you can also change the degree of their like wedge. And some of the Japanese cut chisels have a slightly broader wedge, and they're super nice for establishing lines like this. Like I probably won't need to do very much cleanup for these towards the smaller part of the shell, but I'll need to do quite a bit of cleanup for the larger sections, just to, there's more for the eye to see, so you try and create a little bit more polish.
Do you make all of your chisels all yourself?
Mostly you have to.
Yeah.
So you said you make these mostly out of low carbon?
The hammers can be. The tools need to be quite strong, especially with smaller, like 1/8 or smaller stock. All of it needs to be tempered. Otherwise, you'll bend it in your hand, and I've done that. I've had them snap in my hand, like taking somebody else's workshop, using their smaller tools, and being a little, not cheeky, but definitely aggressive. And sometimes things just give.
Work allows you to travel a bit.
A little bit. So I get another workshop going every year or so, it seems. And as just different communities want to see what to share.
Yes.
And sorry, I'm trying not to lose my place here. And so every year I add, one more as I get to know people and trust is extended. And once you do it the first time, it's so much easier to do it again.
Yeah.
So like adding more is very easy, but adding too much at once can be a problem.
Yeah.
So try not to go overboard.
Where do you find the majority of your inspiration from?
World around us.
Take from nature? That seems to be a huge theme from just about everybody here.
Well, I think that's quite natural. It's like living organisms are influenced by the environment around them.
So we're now
And we have access to understand the scope of what that can mean, as Homo sapien lives everywhere. So if you travel at all, like, it's unescapable to feel like a foreigner, and that makes you appreciate your locality a little bit more, I think. And then you start looking a little bit closer at what is around you. Makes everything a little bit more meaningful when you can put it into scope. So much of chasing is like a cumulative effort.
Yes.
So it might not happen all at once, but you'll continually you're adding momentum.
Every strike is a bit of progression.
A little bit at a time. Just like a lot of stories. But most stories have their ups and downs, right? So